just like pure evil. Yes?
Nothing.
That's right. Because you know, deep down, you deserve to be punished. Don't you, Mr. Potter?
I think this is just making the most of what really little power she has, but she will hang on to it and keep clearing people out as long as she can, her last breath.
Power for me is a very difficult issue. I'm suspicious of people who want power, which I think comes across quite strongly in the books. But I have come to accept that if you are in a position to give, for example, a lot of money to a cause, then that gives you power, because money can be a very powerful tool. If you have a profile, that means you can give a voice to a cause that otherwise wouldn't have such a loud voice, and that is also a form of power. But for me, it's a slightly more complicated issue than that, because I think as an author, you know, I chose a career path that traditionally does not lead to a lot of power. And so I think I really am not being disingenuous when I say that any form of power that's come to me through Harry Potter was very, very unexpected.
I really admire her grace. She's definitely been an inspiration and a role model. I mean, I just feel so blessed that I was given the chance to experience all of these amazing women.
Here we go.
Helena was also a really important mentor to me on this last movie. She very sweetly invited me over for dinner, and we talked about books a lot. And just being a woman, I feel as if somehow I have been under the microscope even slightly more than the boys, just by being the girl. You know, whether it's what I'm wearing, whether it's what I'm doing, where I'm going to school. Just in every sense, I feel as if the public is just so much harder on women. So I think we both know how that feels, being under that kind of scrutiny. You know, we talked about how to kind of be able to absorb criticism and flattery, and knowing what's genuine and what isn't, and knowing who to trust. And yeah, well, it was such a big evening for me. I don't know if she knows how kind of important it was for me, but I've never told her this, but after I had my evening with her, I went home and wrote down everything that she said, everything that we shared. And I actually have a book of important encounters to me, and I write down things that they say, because I was like, one day I'll really wish I remembered what that incredible person that I met said, and what they thought about things, and I don't want to forget. So Jo has a page too.
To Miss Hermione Granger, for the cool use of intellect, while others were in grave peril, 50 points.
Good job. I wouldn't say that I based any of these women on specific women that I knew, but Hermione is an exaggeration of me. So Hermione really did come from a very deep place inside me. I was very insecure, and still am quite insecure in a lot of ways, but I was a very insecure person for longer than I like to admit. And I think writing about the time in Hermione's life that I write about, growing from childhood into womanhood, literally, because when we finish the book, she's 18. I think it brought back to me how very difficult it is. So much is expected of you as you become a woman, and often you are asked to sacrifice parts of you in becoming a girl, I would say. Hermione doesn't. She doesn't play the game, if you like.
How could I be so stupid? I checked this out weeks ago for a bit of light reading.
This is light. The kind of teasing that Ron gives Hermione for being clever and always being in the library, and, you know, I've had that my whole life. Guys giving me a hard time for doing well and being smart, and so I can totally relate.
You're saying it wrong. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
You do it then if you're so clever.
Go on, go on.
From the first moment that I spoke to Emma, I just thought, oh, thank Christ. I did, because, you know, who knew who they were going to cast as Hermione? I was more worried about Hermione than anyone else. I thought, you know, are you going to get a girl and put her in glasses and then she'll, you know, because that shows she's clever. I mean, how many times have we seen that happen? And I spoke to Emma on the phone. She was very young. I think she was 10. And I thought, you are going to be able to play a very bright, articulate girl with conviction because that's who you are.
I felt like I had the most pressure in a way because if I screwed up Hermione, I would be screwing up a part of Jo and just would have been awful. I remember she sent me a letter after the 3rd movie. She wrote me a letter and she said, "To my perfect Hermione." And to hear that from the creator of her was obviously the biggest compliment I could receive, and I knew, that was when I really knew that I'd done a good job.
I think the 3 main characters work as a trio, and part of what makes it work is their gender. And I have fun with that. I have fun with that in Deathly Hallows when it's 3 main characters alone in a tent. And Hermione says, "I notice I'm the one who gets, you know, gets to do the cooking because I'm a girl, I suppose." And Ron says, "No, it's because you're the best witch, and you're the best at magic." So it was fun to play with that.
You're amazing, you are.
Always a total surprise. They couldn't get through a day without her. She really is, she's the brains, she's the best at spells, she's always 2 steps ahead. She's very much part of the action. The main female characters aren't there as a sort of like added bonus, which I feel like so many female characters are. Even Ginny is this incredibly powerful, stubborn, intelligent, quick-witted woman. She's now the kind of girl power figure.
Rejecto!
Obviously, as Ginny's character develops, you really see her as very independent, and I think people portray female characters as very loud and chatty and needing to show their maybe sexuality, and although it's not really needed. So I think that's what makes, I think, Jo Rowling's female characters very strong, because they're a bit more naturalistic and a bit more down to earth.
Shut it!
Thanks.
She's just true to herself no matter what. And I think that's a really important message. Even Luna, who's this very like airy-fairy kind of like in her own world character, still has this amazing conviction in her beliefs, and she's still incredibly smart, and she's very emotionally clever.
Your feet, aren't they cold?
Bit. Unfortunately, all my shoes have mysteriously disappeared. I suspect nargles are behind it.
The key to Luna is that she has that unbelievably rare quality of actually not giving a damn what anyone else thinks of her. Now, if we as adults say honestly how many people we've known like that, I think very many of us would say none. And Luna's like that. She doesn't actually care. She's so comfortable with being different. She's fearless. And I find I loved writing scenes where Luna and Hermione were together, because Luna and Hermione are the absolute antithesis of each other, and yet I love them both equally.
What an interesting necklace.
It's a charm, actually. Keeps away the nargles.
It's sometimes very difficult as a woman to say, well, actually, this is who I am, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But that's the only way to be truly happy, so that's what I would want to say to girls particularly.
Well, people still love the books, so I hope they'll maybe read them to their children, and they'll read them to their children. That's every author's dream.
I've had countless mothers come up to me and say, you know, just thank you so much for giving my daughter a role model. She absolutely idolizes Hermione, and I feel really privileged to have been able to play her.
I would like to think that Hermione is a role model for girls. You see, I was a plain, and that is relevant. That, you know, that is relevant. That's not a trivial thing when you're a kid. I was a very plain, bookish, freckly, bright little girl. I was a massive bookworm, and I spent a significant part of my reading looking for people like me. Now, I didn't come up with nothing, you know. I remember Jo March, who had a temper and wanted to be a writer, so that was a lifeline. There's a heroine in a book called The Little White Horse that I've spoken about publicly who was plain, and that was fabulous. Wow, you get to be a heroine and you get not to be a raving beauty. But you know, these were pretty slim pickings. And then in creating Hermione, I felt I created a girl who was a heroine, but she wasn't sexy. Nor was she the girl in glasses who's entirely sexless. Do you know what I mean? She's a real girl. She's a girl. She fancies Ron, but her hopes initially are pretty low, and she's a real girl. But she never compromises on being a smart girl. She never compromises in acting dumb. She never tries to make Ron feel better by pretending to be less than she is, which is why they don't get together a lot sooner. That's the reality of life. But I'm proud of Hermione. She is who she is. And if that, you know, if that spoke to girls like me, then of course I'm hugely, hugely proud of her. That's what it's all about.
I was always the brains and the, you know, the bossy one when I was a kid, so it's freed us all. It really has.